I'm Jessica Caccialone. For those of you guys who don't know me, I'm the executive director here, which I pretty much know all your guys' faces. So welcome to our very first coffee and chat with Nat Phelps, and he's new to the area, and so this is a fairly casual opportunity to engage with some of our park colleagues and peers, or not really peers, partners, to sort of see what they're up to. Nat, we start with just sort of asking Nat a few questions on ours, just so he can introduce himself and give him an overview of his background and how he sort of ended up here at Shenandoah. I guess, Nat, I'll let you take it away. And if you want to introduce yourself and give us a little bit of your background and sort of what brought you here and your big plans and ambitions.
Well, thanks, Jessica. Thanks, everyone, for being here. Feel free to table my answers too if they get long-winded. It's not intentional. I'm just thinking. But I'm happy to meet all y'all. And so I'm new to Shenandoah as of August, so newish. They're calling me now. I came out from Wyoming and took this position that opened up as a trails manager, facility manager for trails and backcountry facilities. So, I'm really happy to be here. This is my 7th national park. The other 6 were out west, but I'm from Tennessee. So my brother used to live in Standardsville and commute to Charlottesville for 10 years. So I've been in the area in my life several times and had good feelings about it. And so I was happy to see this open up. It was kind of the right place. There's not many national parks in the South area, in Great Smoky, and here with robust trails program. So that's my niche, and so this position was a really good fit for where I'm at, where my family's at. My wife's from North Carolina also, so it's good to be kind of close, but maybe not too close also. So it's a beautiful place.
Great. And well, let's jump into a little bit about what you're encountering here at Shenandoah. So what are some of the unique challenges you're encountering here at Shenandoah, and how is it sort of different from trail management and other parks that you've worked at? And you came from Grand Tetons, right?
That's right, Grand Teton. I worked in several parks in the Southwest. So the desert, obviously, the moisture. I mean, trails is really all about getting water off the trail or getting over it or whatever we need to do to manage water. So there's consistent precipitation year round, and it's not monsoonal. So it's less steep, right? The mountains are old, and I'm coming from newer mountains. So there's a lot of forest and a lot of trees everywhere to kind of protect you from the sun, and also to have a lot of leaf litter on the trails and all of that. And so their unique challenges are doing more carpentry. I've done a lot of dry stone masonry with rock, and there's good wood here. There's hardwood that lasts a long time, so you can do a lot with the wood, the standing dead trees that we can fell and use the timber. So there's a very large volunteer presence as well. So you probably are familiar with the Potomac Appalachian Trail Club, and so they do a lot of the trail work here in the park, and they do that on the weekends. So that's a challenge because our trail crew works Monday to Thursday, and they're often on Friday to Sunday, and so they're out there doing good work, and we just need to make sure that we communicate with them and know what is going on as well. So there's a whole lot that's different about the eastern mountains than the west, but a lot of it revolves around the moisture and the precipitation, and presenting different challenges. And also that's a lot of what I came for. So I like to see the rain again.
Great. And I'm going to throw you a little curveball here, Nat. We had prepped him with questions, but I have a question. And it sort of talks about how you guys prioritize sort of the trails that you work. There's roughly, you can tell me if I'm wrong, about 500 miles of trails. And then how do you guys sort of prioritize, the trails in which we all know there's limited budgets and resources? How do you guys sort of prioritize the trails and the way that you manage and work them?
So good question, and a very interesting question. And I'm still getting to know the use patterns, but we have social scientists working on trail counters. So we try to get our professional National Park Service trail crew on the busier, more trod trails, and we kind of build our projects so we can work on those, and because they're seeing most of the use, so we try to keep up with visitor use patterns in that way. But we don't. We try to get to all 501 miles of trail, and some of that's fire road, a good portion of the fire road. So it may take some equipment to get out there sometimes, and so we have a good variety of work that can be done. There's a whole lot to be built out there. On Cedar Run and White Oak, we can put retaining walls in, maybe even bridges. Part of the pattern was to kind of have it wild and keep the crossings natural. But we can look at that and see where visitor comments align with what our park wants to do about those sort of challenges. But we try to get to all the trails, but the Park Service trail crew tries to focus more on the more heavily used ones for project work, and then also for clearing and making sure that it's free of downfall and trees, and that's the number one thing people care about. So we try to we don't have a large trail crew for 501 miles of trail. We do have the PATC, and they help out a bit. A big portion of they do, for instance, the Appalachian Trail and a lot of the Blue Blaze trails. So lesser used, but still well-used trails in my experience. So we kind of break it up that way, and we have a co-maintained trails with the PATC, and what that relationship looks like is they will try to get the vegetation removal and the downfall, and then we will try to go in and build projects if we need to, check dams, steps, water bars, that sort of thing. And then they have their own that they maintain, and we have our own, again, the more heavily used ones. And then they have the Appalachian Trail, and that's another unique thing about this park, is we have a different national park that runs right through the middle of us, which is run by, we call it APA, but the Appalachian Trail. And so that's kind of how we do it, and we definitely look at that annually to see if the share of trails is correct, and how that's working. So
are you guys continuing to see a high use of visitors on our trails, and how do you, I mean, I know we saw a real push of visitors during COVID. Are the trails still seeing a high level of use, and sort of what is the impact of that for our trail system?
sure. So sometimes there's a lot of people on a trail. Maybe it's South River, for example, where there's so many people that the trail is widening. Some of our day use areas that lead to swimming areas, Cedar Run maybe, but more like Thompson Hollow around Luray, they see quite a bit of day use area for people going swimming. Mormons down near Charlottesville, and so you'll see. I mean, sometimes those are already roads, but the actual trails will widen, and so it's a challenge to keep it from being a muddy bog a lot of the year, and so that impact is kind of widened some of our trails, and it's a little bit of a challenge to go in and to build structures to kind of keep people on our corridor. We want it only a few feet wide, and then with the people we have, it's so some of the trails you might see are a little bit too wide. We're still seeing a lot of use. A lot of people come down from Washington, and I'm seeing it. When I commute, I'm seeing this is a large weekend presence. People coming down on the weekends, and then on the weekdays, the commute is very much easier. There seem to be a lot less people in the park. That's what I personally observe, compared to out in Grand Teton or some of the western parks where people are just out there. The use is pretty consistent in the summer months. So anyway, that's about it.
Great. My last question, and then I'll open it up for others, because I'm sure they've got some good questions for you guys, for you. I know you're newish, so you may not have this fully worked out yet, but as you've been here, can you speak to some of what you're thinking as some of your long-term goals for the trail systems in Shenandoah and sort of how you hope to achieve them?
Sure. And park management also has their own priorities as well. So, and they align with what I'm seeing out there. Is some of those trails, such as up Dark Hollow Trail, there's a waterfall. It's right off of Skyline Drive. Well, not right off. It's a nice little challenging hike, and out and back. Or you can make it a loop. But anyhow, Dark Hollow, that upper portion by the falls, has seen a lot of use, and it sees a lot of erosion from being right near the waterfall and ice and all of that. So there are some major projects that have been done in the Park Service. Yosemite, Grand Teton, where I was part of Inspiration Point. So a lot of parks I find have these areas where the bulk of the visitors go, and that's their hike. They got to see it while they're there, right? We have 501 miles of trail, but only certain of them see a ton of use. And for us, those areas might be, Stony Man or Dark Hollow. And Dark Hollow is kind of the trail is it's too wide. There's kind of inconsistent construction over the years. There's mortar involved, like in the walls. So it would take probably some design. But what I've done in the past is seen a large scale dry stone masonry project. If you use dry stone techniques, they last the longest for trails. We have wood that obviously rots. We have mortar masonry where the mortar will chip away with time. But if you have dry stone construction, it's pretty solid. It's really strong and lasts for a long time, and it allows water to percolate through, which helps as well. And so I've done a lot of that in my career, and there's more of that we can do here, but it's going to take people, because it's not a fast sort of thing. And so we need to be careful with the capacity we have on the trail crew to build things, and the money we have to perhaps reach out to contractors to supplement what we have on staff. So that's kind of a challenge going forward. But Dark Hollow, I'm seeing when you're going to Cedar Run, there's areas where the search and rescue team have to rope up on the trail. So we're trying to avoid that by, being careful and getting in there, maybe closing the trail sometimes, but fixing those areas that are fairly technical. And so we're trying to get the people on and the projects written so we can build that going forward. And then, as previously mentioned, bridges as well. Maybe we want to get into that, maybe not. So
Great, thank you. All right, I'm going to open it up for questions. I think the best way is either to drop it in the chat if you don't personally want to ask it, or if you'll just raise your hand and then I'll call on you. How about we do that? And see how that goes for us. And don't forget to unmute yourself. So I got Hal and Alex. Hal? Oh, Alex and Al, you want to start, and then we can answer Nancy's question.
Sure. I was typing in, will you be backfilling behind Steve?
yeah, it's a good question. That's one of my priorities right now, actually. Close to the top, because obviously that's a large portion of what we do, the South and Central, much of the Central districts. And so we need to fill that position. And so we're trying to fill someone into a temporary hire, makes it faster. And so that person will come in for a few months, 4 months, and is what is allowed. And then we hope to have that position filled, ideally by the candidate, right? That is there for a few months. And we're narrowing down who that will be currently. And so that should go well. If there's an administrative hiccup, sometimes it takes multiple details, all that's kind of workings behind the scenes. But so hopefully things go well there. But we hope to have someone in there by mid-March. So we're only really a month away from filling that position and getting the new crew that we have. We have some new term employees situated up in their summer home up in Big Meadows. And Steve's still around. If you didn't hear me before this meeting started, he's he's moving on to help us out in the budget realm, not just us, but the whole park. And so it's a real asset to have Steve around with all his knowledge and his goodwill and good humor, right?
Yeah, seems great. This is from Nancy. How does the trust support your work?
And so the trust is a very important thing, and I've seen our partners really help trail crews in the past because we're able to get money for some of those aforementioned projects. We're able to get it more directly and quickly. A lot of the work I do is preparing for the future. Our trail crew isn't in the best shape, and I'm preparing like 5 years out. But for whatever reasons with funds and certain things like that, we have a couple of lean years before we can hire to more of our capacity for our trail crew. And so funds from the trust and from donors really help trail crews with targeted projects or just more directly funding our crew and staff. So it's a very, very useful, important thing that I've seen in the past. And also am getting to know the trust here in Shenandoah and the great things they're doing. They really help us out every year. And so to continue that and to build that is very important for some of my goals coming in, but also more importantly, the trails and curbing erosion mostly.
Great. This is from Scott. How big is the trail crew staff? That's a good question.
Yeah, so right now in the winter we have 10, which is a little bigger than normal for the winter months. We rely a lot on seasonal employees, which is a 6-month season is what we're confined to with seasonal employees. Our seasonal staff will be cut this year, so we're looking at 12 to 14 this summer. We have 6-term employees who are here, project funded with rec fee dollars, so entrance fee dollars kind of fund their position. And the idea is to have them for 4 years working year round. And so we can work in the winter. We can still do work when it's not snowing. We can do trail work. It's actually a pretty good time to do a lot of that. And then we also have our boundaries that we need to mark for, and we're doing that also. So we're 10 and we'll have about 14 this summer, but ideally we've had in the past 24 for the summer months. So we'll be a little lean this year and the next year.
Great, thank you. This is from Walter. Do you see other trails needing a visitor management process similar to Old Rag in the future? Ooh, that's a loaded question, Walter.
Well, it's a good question. So Old Rag is definitely, I mentioned Dark Hollow. I mean, that's really, if people really come to the parks more in droves, like we saw that boom for the pandemic, and if we have another boom or it just, continues to add visitation, I'm guessing that areas like Stony Man and Dark Hollow, some of our other big trails that people are coming to off of Skyline Drive, waterfall trails, South River. You probably know of some more, but I don't think we're looking at anything to that degree right now. Maybe some fee stations on the outside, where people are coming in and it's just a trailhead and they're not having to enter the park, such as they have one in Old Rag and White Oak parking lots. So I'm not hearing anything about that. That's over my head and more on the management team. But to speak for visitation on trails, I'm not seeing anything to the capacity of Old Rag. And then Old Rag also has that kind of dangerous element, a little bit like Angel's Landing and Zion, where I used to work. They implemented something akin to the Old Rag process out there to kind of limit use and people's experience, but also safety, right? So Old Rag's got that special element where you could fall and get hurt pretty bad. So bare fence, I don't know, anything like that. in the future.
Let's see, 2 questions. Well, what's your favorite trail? And will you be adding it? Do you think there'll be new trails being added to the park? 2 questions from
Right,
Bruce and Kathy.
good question. Yeah, because there's been some land acquisitions too, and that's great for the park and for our watersheds. And they're careful to add trails because of it's a new asset and we have to maintain it. And so there's the total cost of ownership. If you put something in, like a bridge over a bog or something, you're putting it in, but then you're going to have to replace it in 20 years, and make sure you have the staff and the time to do that in the future as well. So it's like it's a very careful thing to add trails to make sure that we have the capacity to maintain them. There's definitely proposals all the time. We have lots of surrounding communities here in the park, and many people have great ideas for trails, whether that's getting to a town so they can have quicker access off of the Appalachian Trail or something like that. Those are things I've heard, but I haven't heard of any plans to add trails. And my favorite trail, I really love that old drag trail. It's a really special place, especially if you're going out on those times where it's a little less crowded, right? You get those views, and you get your hands on the trail. It's kind of a special thing. I like some of the trails in the South District as well. You can really kind of get lost out there and the Big Run and such. So not actually get lost, but have a wilderness experience.
Any other questions? Hi, Garrick. No. Oh, you're on mute, Garrick. Let's see. Here's a question, and then we'll wrap up. But I have a question. When you think about redesigning a trail, how do you approach that process, and what factors do you consider?
So redesign is a big one. We have we're very careful in the National Park Service, being a preservation conservation organization, with kind of dueling purposes, right, for the benefit of the visitor, but also for ecosystem protection, and very careful. And so we have a compliance process where we're careful with historical values as well, which this park is rich in. And so we have cultural resources, and we have natural resources, and we make sure that we're not disturbing those areas when we go in and think about redesigning. And a lot of these trails are historic from the conservation Corps days, the civilian conservation Corps days. And so, maybe they were a lot in the Park Service, a lot of trails were created by horses even, or animals, and then they become historic, and we need to, maybe that's not the best design, but we need to go in there and do a lot of trail work. And so rerouting, redesigning a trail is not always an easy thing to do, and it's a careful thing. But when we do redesign or reroute a trail, we'll say reroute if it's actually changing where the path goes. And redesign is often something that's done by a landscape architect if it's a big project. So an architectural and engineering firm can come in, or an in-house landscape architect, which I believe our facility manager is hiring. But we take things into account like accessibility. A lot of what I do, if we have checks out there in our trail, check dams to prevent erosion, and if they're too steep, then we need to think of things as a system. So how does each one key in? So people are out there stepping, and it's not a 2-foot step; it's more of an 8-inch step maximum. So it's kind of it's designing things to be more accessible for hikers, and then certain trails are accessible for people of all abilities as well. And those are our ABA design trails, Architectural Barriers Act, and we have Limberlost as an example in the park. But there's a lot that goes into redesigning, and then we run it through our compliance team and our park management to make sure it's a decision that makes sense. Simple projects in the trail are more just on the trail crew to go in and we can just do things. We see an erosion control, a slippery spot, and we can build over it. It's the larger scale things that take that extra effort and consultation with many different people sometimes.
All right, last chance for any questions before we wrap up. 9:28, so I want to be respectful. We said 30 minutes. All right. Well, I thank you all for attending, and we are trying to make this these coffee and chats a quarterly event. So I hope that you'll be on the lookout for the next one with one of our park projects in the near future. And I know I'm going to put Nat a little bit on the spot, but he has offered to lead a hike, so we hope to be able to get him wrapped in at some point, and hope you guys will join us on the trail with Nat and get to know him a little bit more. We're super excited and really thankful, Nat, for you spending some time with us this morning. And we've really enjoyed getting to know you over the last couple months. And to everybody on the call, I appreciate you coming and spending the morning with us. And I look forward to seeing you guys all as it warms up and we get back on the trails and out in the park. So thank you. And maybe Banff. I hope a lot of you are coming to Banff too. Some of you around here. I know some of you are far away. So all right. Well, thank you guys. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon or rest of your day.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye,
Good to meet
guys.
y'all.
Thank you.
Bye.